Hello, everyone. As we are approaching the end of the first day of Peralta Online Equity Conference, I'm excited to introduce the presenter of the upcoming session, Megan Eberhardt-Alstot from California State University, Channel Islands. She will talk about Partnership for Inclusion, Servingness, bilingual course kits to foster DEIA and belonging. Before we start, I would like to remind you that you can use the Zoom captioning feature by using the closed caption button at the bottom of your screen. And if you have any questions during the speech, please use the chat box to share your questions. And at the end of the conference, we will direct your questions to the presenter. And please also subscribe to our YouTube channel to have access to all videos, including the ones from the previous years. And I'm going to share the link in the chat with you all. So, Megan, are you ready?
We are ready. It looks like we'll have a nice conversation today with those of you that have joined. So welcome. And thank you for joining our session. I'm here as part of a trio of partners that have been working on this project, and we're excited to share it with you. So I'm going to go ahead and get us kicked off. We've got our CSUCI bilingual starter kits, and from there I'm going to go ahead and hand off into our introductions. My name is Megan Eberhardt-Alstot. I am the Learning Design Lead for Teaching and Learning Innovations, the Teaching and Learning Innovations team. So I do a lot of support and working with faculty to enhance their digital learning environments, whether that's online programs or online course development and anything in between that has a digital component. And I'm joined today by two of my colleagues, Dana Lomax and Christy O'Neill-Gonzalez, and I'm going to go ahead and hand off to Dana to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm also really excited to be with you. I'm Dana Lomax, and I also, in addition to working at CSUCI, I'm a dual language educator in Ventura Unified School District. And I'll pass it to Christy.
Hi, and I'm Christy O'Neill-Gonzalez. I am the Accessibility and Inclusive Design Lead for the same team that Megan mentioned earlier on TLI. I wear a bunch of other hats too, but for the sake of this conversation, I'm just going to leave it at that. And I will, I believe, hand it back to Dana to kick us off even further.
Thanks, Christy. So to begin, we'd like to invite you to participate in a learning experience. And this experience can be somewhat challenging for some folks for whom it's all too real. So please participate at your comfort level. For this opening experience, you may click on the link in the chat to make a copy of the doc, or you can just use a piece of paper and make 8 boxes that have those various aspects of your identity: race, ethnicity, religion, spirituality, language, a life value like beauty or humor or democracy or family, or religion or accountability, anything that is a value of yours. Your vocation or role could be your job, could be your some sort of family relationship, that you're a mother or a sister. Also, if there's a possession that's important to you, you'll have a box for that as well, and gender and sexual orientation. And then, so you can make a copy of the doc, or just, quickly on a piece of paper, just create 8 boxes and put those titles. And I think they're also in the chat. And then under each box, just take a minute or two to write 1 or 2 aspects of your identity. So for example, under race, ethnicity, I could put Mexican, Irish, German, French. And under spirituality, I could put, what my spiritual beliefs are, languages that I speak, and so forth. So take a minute and fill out those boxes. It's just little bullet points are fine. And you can put as much or as little as you'd like. Just thinking about your own identity and aspects of your life. And when you're finished, if you could give us a thumbs up in the chat, that'd be great. Let us know that you've filled in your 8 boxes, or you have at least a couple bullet points in each, or one at least in each box. That'd be great. One that sometimes throws people off is possession. If there's something that is dear to you, maybe it's a gift from someone, or one person that has done this experience has put a dollar bill that his dad had given him that had his birth date and the serial number. So just anything that maybe stands out to you. Maybe it's a handmade card from a child, something that you treasure. And again, when you're ready, if you'll just put a little message, a thumbs up, or an I'm ready note in the chat, that'd be great. Great, thank you. The item's ready.
I know it's a lot to try to think about in a very short amount of time.
It is.
Big questions.
All right, thank you, Maria. Maria's ready.
Is there any way to put the value cards link in the chat?
Sure. Thank you, Christy. The value cards link. Let's see, is that not there?
It is. I think it's Christy's grabbing it right now.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you. Yeah, I just can't take out a second on a different device.
That's great. So when you make a copy of the doc, it should be, that link should be live. I think so. We'll see. Excellent. Yeah, and that can be tricky too. So, because those are hard to think about. There are things like health and family and beauty and humor, right? Which you're only picking one or two, right? So that can be challenging. But just for today, because I've done this activity many times and it changes over time. So just today, what resonates with you, given that this is, fairly short activity? Just what's catching your eye right now, touching your heart. And we'll take another 30 seconds. There we go. Dr. Morgan's ready. Okay, so hopefully you're finishing up and you have just about everything, something in each box. And I'm sorry to tell you this, but you live in a very controlling regime in which the powers that be are forcing you now to get rid of 2 aspects of your identity. So what you need to do is cross out 2 of those boxes, and you have to let go of those 2 aspects of who you are. So do that now, please. Cross out 2 of the boxes. Okay, I know this can be difficult. I know this is, it's a very painful experience, and truly, So you have to choose two, the powers that be deem it so. Hopefully you've gotten rid of those. And I have to tell you now that I know this is also going to be very difficult, but you are now required to let go of two more aspects of your identity. So please cross out two more boxes, and the powers that be say that you must let go of two more aspects of who you are. So please cross out two more boxes. So you'll have 4 boxes crossed off and only 4 remaining. And as challenging as that was, I'm going to tell you that now you have to get rid of 2 more. You have to cross out 2 more so that you're left with only 2 boxes of your identity that represent who you are. And finally, you have 2 boxes left. I understand, I understand you, there's only, you have 2 boxes remaining, and I'm gonna ask that you, the powers that be demand that you cross out 1 more aspect of your identity, so you're left with just 1. Sorry to tell you. And I'm gonna ask you to now to please share in the chat. We'll do a chat storm. Type in which, if you feel comfortable, type in which aspect of your identity you decided to keep. Which was it? Which aspect?
Megan, can
Yes.
you explain the chat storm process, please?
Oh, sure. So what we'd like you to do is type your response, but don't hit send, and then we'll count down from 3, and we will see what everybody had to say.
So you
So go
might
ahead.
have life value written in, you might have language, you might have race or ethnicity. Okay.
So thinking of those headings in the boxes, go ahead and type the heading of the identity you decided to keep.
And you can also put what it was. So you might put life value, love, or possession, bicycle. Wonderful. Okay. And then we'll count down.
All right,
Well,
3, 2, 1. Let's see what everybody had to say. Okay.
the item is that life value. Yes.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, number 4. Okay, great. Yeah.
Compassion, wisdom, beautiful.
Mm.
And we could take the time, right? And if we had all the time in the world to talk about why we chose which our possession, why a bicycle is important to us, and why maybe we chose our language, or perhaps why we chose our life value. But for the sake of time, I want you to consider where is this evil regime that would make us erase portions of our identity? And one of the things that I've learned in doing this experience is that one of the places where we're asked to do that is actually school, right? In school, so often many of our students are asked to leave their identities at the door, all around us, and at work as well. Yes, their spirituality, their language, their values at the door. And what gets centered oftentimes is that of whoever represents the powers that be in those spaces. So we wanted to do this culture toss to bring that awareness to the fact that we oftentimes are asked to leave many aspects of our identity outside of certain spaces, and some folks more than others, for sure. Some of us, like myself with white privilege, are normalized in what is allowed to be brought into the space.
Thank you. All right. So I'm going to pick up from here, and I'm going to introduce a little bit more of our campus context so that we can situate this idea of a bilingual course kit and why we have been excited to pursue this, but then also to share it here at the conference. So I do want to acknowledge, first of all, that the data reflected on the table itself doesn't represent all of the broad, diverse categories that we know are representative in a Hispanic or Latinx cultural context. It's just the way that our university at this moment in time is able to break the data down. We know our students, and probably those at your institutions, are more diverse than our data dashboards. And so we do want to just acknowledge that as we move forward. So on the screen, you are going to see a snapshot of our fall 2023 enrollment. At CSUCI, our students represent a lot of diversity, starting from the population at the very left of the screen that you're looking at. Or I'm sorry, at the beginning in the upper right, our student demographics are as follows. We are at 65% students being female, 63% are from historically underrepresented groups or HUGs, 60.9% are Latinx, 48% Pell eligible, so we associate that with a low socioeconomic bracket. So they do qualify for federal grant funding for exceptional financial need. 60% are first in their family to go to college, and 54% are transfer students. And based on where we're situated in Ventura County, we have 3 community colleges that are really geographically close that we tend to draw from as far as our our transfer students. And if you were to look at the demographics within our community college institutions, they'd be very similar to what you're seeing here in our dashboard. The bar chart at the bottom is comparing our student population between our Hispanic, who identify as Hispanic or low income, at about 74% of our students, which equates to about 3,800 of our total student population. And then we look at those who identify as not Hispanic or low income, making up about 25%, and that's about 1,325 students, just to give you a sense of our breakdown. Thank you, Christy. Can we go to the next slide? All right. So at CSUCI, we are technically a Hispanic serving institution just by our numbers. But we are taking the term of serving very seriously. And the work we do throughout our campus, we do seek to truly serve the Hispanic student population by thinking about how we approach and measure our institutional impact by evaluating how our efforts are supporting the success of our Hispanic students. We have been recognized by the by Excellencia in Education by being given the Seal of Excellencia, along with other CSU campuses in our system who are displayed on the screen. And this includes Fresno State, Northridge, San Diego State University, California State Fullerton, Long Beach, as well as our institution. The Seal of Excellencia is to recognize institutions whose efforts are positively impacting Hispanic student success, and we just are wanting to situate this project as part of our efforts to be mindful of the population that we are seeking to serve. All right, next slide, please. Thank you. So in this slide titled Servingness as a Priority, I wanted to share that last fall, our provost highlighted the significance of servingness as an HSI by sharing an essay with throughout our staff and our faculty by Gina Garcia, who's an associate professor in the Department of Administrative and Policy Studies at the University of Pittsburgh, where she teaches master's and doctoral students pursuing degrees in higher education and student affairs. The essay is linked to our slides if you'd like to read it in its entirety, if you haven't already read it before. But this slide does summarize some key points about what Garcia identifies to enact servingness in higher education. So I'm going to read you just a short paragraph from Garcia's essay where she writes, although defining servingness is hard, it is not necessary. It is hard, it is necessary. As HSIs are becoming increasingly significant in not only providing access to Latinx students, but graduating them and supporting their upward mobility. Based on a systematic review of HSI research, the multidimensional conceptual framework of servingness at HSI suggests that servingness is multidimensional and can be conceptualized by indicators of serving and structures for serving. So right here on the slide, I'm going to read to you just some key points from Garcia's multidimensional indicators to provide some context for why we elected to develop bilingual course kits as a servingness effort. So the first indicator is academic outcomes, which highlights persistence, graduation, transfer, course completion, STEM degree completion, and labor market outcomes. A second level of indicator is non-academic outcomes, so development of academic self-concept, leadership identity, racial identity, critical consciousness, graduate school aspirations, and civic engagement. And then structures for serving include mission and purpose statements, HSI grant activities, decision-making processes, equity-minded leadership practices, policies, curricular and co-curricular structures, institutional advancement, compositional diversity of faculty, staff, administrators, and graduate students, and engagement with the community. So as educators in the realm of learning design, we like to think about these structures for serving and realize that this is definitely a continuous journey, which I will describe on the next slide. So this slide is an illustration of an orange spiral circling upwards. And it's going to reflect the journey that we are finding ourselves on. We see technology as having many affordances to further humanize the learning environment and learning experiences that are central to our story of our value system. We were fortunate to have Michelle Pacansky-Brock as part of our team in 2013, who brought the idea of humanizing to the online learning space, but this has really branched out as we think of all of our design efforts to how do we serve humans at the center. We do continue to ground everything that we do in research-based design coming out of the literature. And that includes the quality learning and teaching rubric, which is also based in literature that defines criteria for what it means to develop a quality online or digital course. And from that came the idea of these course kits, having a course starter kit that started out as just being based on this cult design, and then through iterations on this journey, Dana, through one of her projects, which she'll share in just a moment, sought to take the course kit and take it to the next level by moving it from just not only being aligned to cult, but then also reflecting language to be even on another level of more inclusive. So Dana, I will hand it off to you.
Thank you. And just want to talk about a few other underpinnings, theoretical underpinnings of the course kits before we take a tour of them. Would everyone please tell me, how familiar are you with the 4 I's of oppression? In the chat, please put, if you've never heard of them, put a 0. If you could teach about them, please put a 5. And if you're somewhere in between, put that number. Let's see, how familiar are folks with the 4 I's of oppression? So from 0 to 5. Okay, thank you, Eva. Thank you for sharing. Good. There's something we can share with you today. Then we're going to watch this video to introduce the 4 I's of oppression, and we'll be referring to them as we talk about the course kits.
Oppression. It's a word that's often used as a blanket term, but there's actually a whole lot more to it. There are 4 interlocking aspects of oppression: ideological, institutional, interpersonal, and internalized. And it might seem like a small difference, but it's very important to be able to distinguish between each kind, because understanding oppression is the first step to fighting it. Let's start with the core at the heart of every form of oppression: ideology. Every system of oppression comes from the idea that one group is somehow better than another. Ideological oppression starts when the dominant group associates positive qualities with itself and negative qualities with the marginalized or othered group. Ideological oppression describes the deeply ingrained social root of inequality. It's the larger overarching idea that leads to the isms. For example, the idea that black people are dangerous is ideological racism. The idea that poor people are lazy is ideological classism. Ideological oppression leads to institutional oppression. Institutional oppression is the way that systems and institutions manifest the dominant ideology. Institutions control access, who is able to get to what and how. This includes legal rights, police practice, access to medical care and education, public policy, political power, and media representation. For example, when women make 2/3 of what men make, that's institutional sexism. When a building is constructed without wheelchair ramps, that's institutional ableism. All of this leads to interpersonal oppression. Interpersonal oppression is probably the easiest to recognize because it happens all around us. Interpersonal oppression is the way that people play out discrimination and violence on each other. It can take the form of microaggressions, jokes, stereotypes, and harassment. For example, when a student is bullied for being gay, it's interpersonal homophobia. When a Muslim person is told that they're a terrorist, it's interpersonal Islamophobia. And all those forces, ideological, institutional, and interpersonal, lead to internalized oppression. Internalized oppression is the way that people with marginalized identities internalize narratives of their own inferiority. It's what leads people to feel less than. This is the end goal of oppression. The oppressive party doesn't need to exert force any longer because the marginalized group is enacting oppression on itself to maintain the status quo. It's important to remember that it's never a marginalized person's fault that they feel internalized oppression. It's simply what happens when someone faces negative stereotypes, low expectations, and ongoing discrimination. So, for example, an immigrant feeling embarrassed about having an accent is internalized xenophobia. When a trans woman feels that they can never be a real woman, that's internalized transphobia. So, to review, the 4 I's of oppression are ideological, institutional, interpersonal, and internalized. Each of these types are interconnected and completely supported by the others. They can never exist on their own and can even be seen as a cycle. Now that you understand the different kinds of oppression, you're even more equipped to fight it. Don't forget that any effort to dismantle oppression should aim to address it at all 4 of these levels. Thanks for watching.
And we'll see as we go along how the 4 I's show up in the course kits and how we're working to dismantle those in this project. On the next slide, we're going to see Dr. Tara Yosso's community
Oppression.
cultural wealth. And I would love if you do the same. Put 0 to 5. How familiar are you with Tara Yosso's community cultural wealth framework? You could put that in there as well. And this framework is actually a very asset-based approach to looking at the identities that students bring and what is the dreams that they come with, their linguistic capital, the languages that they speak, what they've learned from their families, their networks. So if you're not familiar with Dr. Yosso's work, when we talk about looking at students' strengths and the assets they bring, it's a beautiful framework that is also foundational to the work that we've done with the course kits. Next slide, please. And we also here will see some books that were influential, some texts that have creating a sense of belonging. Jeffrey Cohen's book, it's absolutely gorgeous and has a beautiful definition of belonging as the feeling that we're part of a larger group that values, respects, and cares for us, and to which we feel we have something to contribute. The word belong literally means to go with, and our species has evolved to journey through life with each other, which is gorgeous definition there that has guided this work in terms of belonging and who has a sense of belonging in our institution. Also, as we pointed, as Megan spoke about, Gina Garcia's work about servingness, and then Dr. Luz Herrera and Dr. España's work about in comunidad, uplift the voices of Latino students, which fits right in with our work in our Hispanic serving institution. Next slide, please. So we'll take a look at these starter kits. There are 2 starter kits. This came out of an equity inquiry project where I'm someone who talks about the 4 I's of oppression in my classes, and I talk about the importance of linguistic community cultural wealth in teaching students who are in the bilingual authorization program. And yet when you opened my Canvas courses, you would see predominantly English. And so there was an equity inquiry project that was sponsored by the university where we could choose a problem of practice. And mine was, how can I teach these things and then not represent them in my courses? How can students not see their linguistic cultural wealth in my courses if I'm talking about them? So I took the opportunity to make these course kits. And there were times when I would talk to Megan and Christy and say, AI could do this. What is the point of doing this project? And we had great conversations about how, when an instructor chooses to make a course kit bilingual, they are acknowledging the community cultural wealth that students bring. It's not so much about the tool. AI can translate easily, right? They can make the banners and the headers and match the colors. It's about the professor being proactive and making their Canvas courses bilingual so that when a student opens it, they see their primary language at a Hispanic serving institution, right? Instead of having the student having to go get the immersive reader or do the translations themselves. So this is a pedagogical shift that, that we think is important. And so made two, in making these two course kits, we made two. One is the simultaneous bilingual course kit, and any instructor could import this kit into their course, even if they don't speak Spanish, because the course banners and headings and directions are side by side. The English is in black type and the Spanish is in red. And so it is representation of Spanish in the kit. And any instructor can use it. The sequential kit is for instructors who teach in world language departments or in the bilingual authorization where most of the instruction is in Spanish. Let's take a look at those. Christy, if we'll go to the next one, we'll see the simultaneous bilingual course kit. This is what it looks like. And you see over on the left-hand side, I did take the navigation bar and you can change in settings so that everything shows up in Spanish. Which the first time I did that, interestingly, some students thought the English disappeared because English is so centered that sometimes if the Spanish is visible, the students were unable to see the English, which I thought was really interesting. That happened to 2 or 3 students in my course. And I said, oh, the English is there. You just have to look, it's in black type on the pages. So there you can see the headings are in Spanish and English side by side, the major headings, and then the tasks were in English for courses where they were taught predominantly in English. And so that's a use for the simultaneous kit. On the next slide, we see the sequential kit that has the English first and then the Spanish second. And this way, an instructor could erase the English to have just the Spanish for a world language course or a bilingual authorization course. Next slide, please. Thank you, Christy. This is you're up.
I was like, unmute myself. Okay. So where I came in is for accessibility and inclusive design. As the on the screen is a decorative image of a collection of 3 trees, along with a list of examples. And if you'll indulge me for a moment, I'm going to utilize the trees as a metaphor and say the following. In my forest of knowledge, 3 of my elder trees or core design philosophies that I strive to live by are accessibility, inclusive design, and user experience. While each of these trees could exist as its own variety independent of the others, together they create a beautiful canopy that focuses on making products and environments usable by as many people as possible, regardless of their age, abilities, or circumstances. And then to draw your eye back to the screen would be the examples of the kind of things that I did specific to this project, where the focus, and Dana and Megan asked me to do what I do, quote unquote, which is focusing on the invisible details that make a learning experience, in our instance in Canvas, more inclusive and more accessible. So for examples would include consistent styling and text formatting. That's things like making sure that all the headings are the exact same size, that the colors used for different pieces are the same throughout. Checking all hyperlinks to ensure that they function properly. So I was looking for broken links, trying to replace those with ones that actually worked, and or removing ones that weren't necessary to avoid that panic, when a student reaches out to you and says, I can't reach that reading that you're telling me is due today. As well as organizing the files by developing a more simplified structure and naming convention. And that one can be challenging because I'm trying to think of it from lots of perspectives, right? So we're making this something that's available to other folks. So I want it to make sense to as many people as possible. And I did also include the Spanish translations in the file organization, depending on which kit it is. You'll have the English text followed immediately by the Spanish text, because I wanted to support that, because maybe this instructor speaks Spanish and is going to search in Canvas in Spanish for a given image or a file, as well as removing duplicates of images and documents and things like that, which more folds into the fact that our instance, we use Ally in our course or in our Canvas instance, which is an accessibility checker. And just removing duplicates can greatly improve your score, because anything and everything in your course, no matter if it's published or not published, is being counted towards your overall course accessibility score. And with that, I believe I hand it back to Dana.
And after this last semester, in the middle of the semester, when I implemented the bilingual course kits, I asked students, I gave them a Google form and asked them, so what do you think, right? And I asked them quite a few questions, but one of the questions I asked is, do you feel that you belong in this course? Because I was trying to think about language and its connection to belonging. And here you can see that, yes, it helped according to the data, right? Which is research light, because I'm the instructor giving the survey, right? And also the courses are about linguistic oppression and uplifting multilingualism. So there's a little bias there, but nearly all the students reported having a strong sense of belonging in the course. And native Spanish speakers especially reported that was important for them to see their home language represented in Canvas. And this quote, I think, says so much about how important it is to represent students' linguistic community cultural wealth in our institutional platforms. Okay, next slide, please. And this is some more feedback that I got. In EDML 416, most students are native Spanish speakers, and they said that they always supported the use of English and Spanish in Canvas, which was interesting. And in EDS's methods course about using the ELD standards, most students are native English speakers, but in this course as well, overwhelmingly, students were in support of using the bilingual course kits, which was great to see. Given our political climate, it was very encouraging to see that all students support the use of bilingual Canvas, right? Why not? They took an additive approach. Both languages were represented there. So yeah, in terms of belonging, in terms of seeing students' community cultural wealth, in terms of feeling a part of the class, it was overwhelmingly, the data suggested that students were in favor of bilingual course kits. And Megan, to you.
All right, so our focus, in this presentation was really about all of the partnerships that it takes to really work on being more inclusive as we're thinking about servingness. And so this slide highlights all of the different input spaces that were part of this, ranging from student assistance to faculty, across different languages, as well as equity inquiry, as well as from our Chicana studies, and Christy, who you've met here, and then Georgia, another one of our learning designers. Dana's son Cisco was involved in the translation, as well as being another checker, as well as having different faculty, Dr. Jimenez in Spanish, again, also just eyes on this project giving feedback. And then, so yes, we wanted to just really highlight these partnerships. All right, and so we did want to share with you a little bit about what we've learned or what we've taken away from this experience as well. So I do want to describe the slide to you, and then we'll get into our different learnings. So let's see, sorry, I've lost my spot. So I do want to describe this object to you. This is based on Mishra and Kohler's TPAC, Technological, Pedagogical, and Content Knowledge Framework. And I'm going to describe to you, it's a overlapping of 3 Venn diagram circles. Around it is a dashed line. Outside is context knowledge, or outside of the dashed circle. That's because we have to think about all the partnerships, all the different contextual knowledge that we bring to a design situation. And then the upper yellow circle is technological knowledge. Those are all the technical competencies, probably the things that Christy and I might bring to the equation when you're talking about learning design and accessibility. Pedagogical knowledge is in the lower left circle. That is representative of all of us. All of us at different levels have different instructional strategy pieces of knowledge that we brought to this. And then the kind of rusty red circle or content knowledge would be reflective of Dana's expertise, that she was able to bring this content into this space. So as we think about just all of the connected partnerships and different types of expertise, I think that my number one learning was the ability to have trust and vulnerability, because in this partnership, we all recognized we had to be able to trust to say what we didn't know or what we weren't really sure how to do, or if we made mistakes, to know that other people would gently correct us or steer us back to what would be considered most inclusive. And then also trusting this educational realm, this space, as we're sharing this work, to provide critical but kind feedback. And that has thrown us back into the spiral as we rethink how do we continue to have servingness in the way that we're designing for learning. So it's a journey that will continue, but we feel like it's an important one. And so we do look forward to feedback as we continue to learn. And Dana, I will hand to you.
One of my big takeaways, I totally agree with being vulnerable. I made so many rookie mistakes, like trying to copy and paste images into Canvas, which I knew I wasn't supposed to be doing. But so I was grateful that Megan and Christy were patient and kind with me in that process. But also that idea that as an instructor, I learn from my students, and having students who were heritage speakers give feedback that they felt that internalized oppression of not being good in or being proficient in either language. That feedback was really important to me and will inform my instruction moving forward, as I'm going to make a language positionality statement. So inviting students to bring their full linguistic repertoire, knowing that language is about communication, and speaking directly to the white supremacy that says that English is the language of power, that we are working to dismantle that idea. And so really just stating that. And also for I found that some of the monolingual English speakers had had doubts about their being only monolingual, and just inviting us, if we're trying to change the world, we can't beat ourselves up about our language, right? But it's not the person's fault, right? I mean, like they said in the video, it's because this is a system of oppression that operates on so many levels, but working to explicitly call that out and to state that we're going to celebrate all the full linguistic repertoire that we bring, knowing that we're all lifelong language learners. That learning from my students that's where they are in their sense of language, and how to support them in this idea that bringing your full linguistic repertoire is what is going to be the norm, and including being able to turn in assignments in Spanish. So that's a key takeaway for me. And you, Christy?
For the sake of time, I'm going to make this real quick, but as a first-gen student whose first language is not Spanish, it was a unique opportunity to potentially support others and increase their success at CI by making this meaningful change and ensuring that their first language was included, because I myself like to celebrate everyone that graduates, especially first-gens, knowing that that's our big part of our population. And I will happily scream my head off for every single person that goes across, whether they have family here or not. So just knowing that I'm indirectly or directly, they'll never know that it was me, but helping fellow first gens is absolutely phenomenal. And then real quick, I know we're about out of time. The course kits are available in Canvas Commons. On the screen is a screenshot of what they look like, which is a blue kind of picture that says the name, either sequential bilingual course kit or simultaneous bilingual course kit. If you go to Canvas Commons and search bilingual course kits, they should come up. So we hope you will definitely leverage them if you are in the Canvas instance. And I'm sure we could collaborate otherwise if you are not, and still get you the information. And with that, any questions, comments? I realize we're basically out of time, but thank you for joining us today. Any last thoughts, ladies?
Well, if there's a question about if the professor doesn't read or speak Spanish, for the simultaneous course kit, it's not necessary that it's there in Spanish and as well as English. So, and then anything that you fill in the course kit can be in English, but it's just it's that representation that a native Spanish speaker or a heritage speaker could open their Canvas and see their language represented.
And they're designed so it's for like the welcome or the start here module. So even if that was the only module that you wanted to create in your course that way, then it allows that orientation space to be at least with the headings and whatnot, and the even instructions for getting started and technical support. All of those things are in both languages.
Yeah, we're not expecting you to take Spanish submissions, obviously, if you don't understand what they're saying, by no means.
Thank you so much, Donna, Christy, and Megan. We really appreciate your work, and sharing it with us is so valuable, especially the course you just shared in Canvas Commons. I'm sure so many people will get benefit out of it. So thank you so much. I'm just checking again. Okay, so Eva is asking what was the search term for the Commons?
Bilingual course kits.
Yeah, bilingual
Yeah.
course kits.
And or
yes.
CSUCI.
Oh, and Christy, can we share? I think we have a link to our slides we can put in the chat again, because that has our
Yep.
link to everything.
Have
I'm
it already.
scrolling. Ah, perfect. So
Yeah.
everything's there, and then you can link out even to information that was shared. So thank you for your time and for joining us on a Monday afternoon, no less. So
Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you, everybody.